Hello and welcome to another episode of The Cellcast.
The animated series.
Joining me today is a man who just can't keep his big mouth shut, Jacob.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. Why, thank you. I'd like to introduce our co-host, a man who is just looking to get promoted every once in a while. Welcome, Drew.
How are you doing, Jacob?
Man, smashing-tacular.
Okay. Today is a very special episode because we are finishing the first season of our animated series. Today is a very special episode because this is the first time we will be closing out a season of an animated series for this animated series sub-show we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, Season 1, Episode 10 of Star Trek Lower Decks, entitled No Small Parts, which was written by Mike McCann and directed by Barry J. Kelly. Alright, so getting into the Easter eggs for this, we start off with one that I did not even know because I've not actually seen the original animated series that much.
Ah, okay.
Even though I recognize the name Landru.
Mm-hmm.
The Cerritos... the episode opens with the Cerritos in orbit of Beta 3, a planet from the original series episode, The Return of the Archons. Oh, sorry, this is not an animated series. It's an original series episode that I somehow missed. I am a horrible Trekkie. Okay, planet from the original series episode, The Return of the Archons. In that episode, people worshipped a bizarre god named Landru, but Kirk and Spock determined that Landru was a computer. Landru encouraged people to go nuts once a day during something called the Red Hour, which is essentially the Purge.
Pretty much.
So anyone who thought that was a new idea. Also, Ben Stiller named his production company the Red Hour from that episode.
Really?
Mm-hmm. If you're curious why in the name of that episode it was called Return of the Archons, the Archons were actually humans from an Earth ship called the Archon that the people of Beta 3 were waiting for the return of. So when this... Meaning they were actually waiting for the return of the Archons, meaning humans from Earth. So, with the Cerritos back at this planet, this is the third time the Archons have returned. We also get a quick shot of Kirk and Spock's animated series models from 1973.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Freeman's threat to Landru references one of Kirk's famous talking a computer to death speeches at the end of the same episode, Return to the Archons. Kirk also famously talked other AIs to death in The Changeling and I, Mud. Ransom actually calls that era the TOS era.
Yeah.
Now, in real life, the reason we call it the TOS era is because TOS stands for the original series,
yes,
referencing the original Star Trek series. He calls it that because it's filled with those old scientists. They mention the Gamesters of Triskelion, which is from a TOS episode of the same name. They are talking brains who make bets with a currency known as Quatloos.
I have no idea what that is.
It's just a random currency.
Okay.
They had slaves that fought people so they could bet on them.
Oh,
They fought each other.
Oh.
Boimler mentions that the Cerritos has a Captain Freeman Day, which references the Captain Picard Day from the Next Generation episode, The Pegasus. More on that later. This is the third time in 2020 that a new Trek series has referenced Captain Picard Day. In the first episode of Picard Remembrance, Jean-Luc revisited the Captain Picard Day banner, and in episode 5 of Lower Decks, Captain Picard Day was referenced outright. The robot in this episode, named Peanut Hamper, is an exocomp, a type of sentient artificial life first seen in the Next Generation episode, The Quality of Life. In that episode, the exocomps were recognized by being sentient in 2369. Lower Decks is, of course, in 23.8, so it seems a lot has happened in the, 20 years? 20, 30 years? The Quality of Life was also directed by Jonathan Frakes.
Huh.
Mariner mentions that Wesley Crusher worked with his mom, and because Wesley Crusher, the entire reason he was on the Enterprise D is because his mother was the Enterprise D's chief medical officer, which, considering that the Crushers and the Picards apparently were somewhat friends through Wesley's father, Jack, kind of just adds some interesting stuff to that.
Right.
One of the guys on the ship that is trying to brown-nose Mariner mentions that Wolf 359 was an inside job.
Yes.
Here's the funny thing about that. You could claim it was. Do you know when Wolf 359 is?
No, I don't.
Wolf 359 is the battle that takes place in The Best of Both Worlds Part 2.
Oh, okay.
The episode where Picard has been assimilated by the Borg Collective.
Right, okay.
As far as we know, he wasn't called dead at this point. So you could say they were using Picard, and they were using Picard's intelligence in order to know how to fight everything. So literally, it was an inside job.
Technically,
just not the way you would think it is.
Yeah.
This changeling, this conspiracy theory guy also claims that changelings aren't real and the Dominion War didn't happen. This references the last 4 seasons of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which was literally it's an arc called the Dominion War, in which the Federation is fighting a group of essentially an anti-Federation. They're like the Federation, but through domination, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
That is led by a race of aliens called the Founders, or as we more commonly think of them, changelings. The fake distress call in this episode comes from the Calla system. This references the Next Generation episode Firstborn, in which the Calla system is mentioned as a place the Pakleds hang out, which is a good thing because the Pakleds themselves only appeared in the original Next Generation episode The Samaritan Snare. As Boimler and Freeman point out, people thought they were a joke back then, but it turns out they're not anymore. I would also like to point out in the video game Star Trek Klingon, which was actually filmed because it was one of those point-and-click video adventure games, the Pakleds show up there and they're still a joke. But here, this is what happens when you give idiots power.
True.
Because the Pakled are a race of idiots. Apparently, on First Contact Day, people eat salmon.
Okay.
Because Ransom says the Pakled ship is carving up the Cerritos like a First Contact Day salmon.
Oh, okay.
First Contact Day is April 5th, 2063, which was when the Vulcans made first contact with humans, as seen in the movie Star Trek First Contact. Why would people eat salmon on First Contact Day, would you guess? Could it be that it happened in Montana? And that salmon might have been the only thing they could have had on hand at the time of the first... Of the first Contact Day? Like we think turkeys at Thanksgiving?
That does make sense.
Mariner has a bunch of contraband from all over the ship. The ones we get to see are a Tribble from The Trouble with Tribbles and Trials and Tribulations. Mariner... Oh, and the animated series episode More Tribbles, More Troubles. Mariner later says that she uses it for personal reasons. I don't want to know.
Exactly. Keep that to yourself, Mariner.
A fencing foil. This references Sulu fighting with a sword like this in The Naked Time. It also references Mariner telling Boimler that he could become a sword guy in the original Lower Decks episode Second Contact. A bottle of Klingon blood wine. A Klingon batleth. A Spock helmet, which is based on a toy from the 70s. Produced by AHI. For years, fans have pointed out that the helmet has nothing to do with Spock or Star Trek, despite the fact that it was sold as a real Star Trek toy. Ethan Peck jokingly unboxed one of these vintage Spock helmets in December 2019 on StarTrek.com. The fact that Mariner has one of these helmets as contraband seems to imply that the Spock helmet is actually canon. Other than Zahn, in the last episode, this Easter egg might be Lower Deck's deepest cut.
Yeah, that is very, very unique.
When Peanut Hamper, the exocomp, says that she'll pass on helping the ship, Tendi says, "What about the needs of the many?" This references Spock's famous axiom from the Wrath of Khan that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Although Riker's USS Titan has been referenced several times on lower decks, and one officer even found himself transferred there in episode 6, I'd forgot that. This is the first time we've ever actually gotten to see Riker's Luna-class starship in action. The way the Titan looks matches its appearance on the covers of several non-canon novels, as does its registry number NCC 80102. In 2379, Riker became the captain of the Titan and Troy, the ship's counselor. They were also married.
Yeah, I knew that much.
Riker says red alert twice in these Titan scenes. Once when the ship makes its big entrance, and again when he says we're still at red alert. This references Riker's habit of saying red alert really, really loud on Next Generation. Riker's first officer seems to be the same species as Linus from Star Trek Discovery. This alien in the first officer's chair looks very much like the Saurian Linus from Star Trek Discovery. In theory, the Saurians have been in canon for a long time. Bones and Kirk drank Saurian brandy in the original series, and a Saurian was a prominent background character in the motion picture. Mariner says that Riker is flushed with Romulan ale, which, as all good Star Trek fans know, is illegal. Although Lower Decks referenced Romulan whiskey in the first episode, this is the first reference to Romulan ale in the show. In Nemesis, Riker and Troy had Romulan ale served at their wedding. So Troy saying we'll talk about this might reference the idea she had assumed that all the Romulan ale had already been drunk. Captain Freeman insists that she doesn't want the Cerritos to have cosmetic changes, saying, I hate it when a ship gets repaired and comes out looking all Sovereign class. This references the idea that the original series Enterprise looked very different after its refit at the beginning of the Star Trek The Motion Picture. But more specifically, it references the Sovereign class USS Enterprise E, the ship that replaced the Enterprise D in Star Trek First Contact. Jax, the security chief of the USS Cerritos, unexpectedly dies at the end of in this episode. This could reference Tasha Yar, the security chief of the Enterprise who died in the first season of Next Generation. Jax's funeral echoes Spock's funeral in The Wrath of Khan, and also Ariam's funeral in Star Trek Discovery episode The Red Angel. Riker called Carol Freeman his Chadich. Like Mariner calling Boimler his Chadich in Second Contact, Riker calls Freeman, Mariner's mom, the same thing. Once again, for those who don't remember, Chadich is the Klingon term that means someone is basically someone's loyal assistant who does their fighting for them. Picard was Worf's Chadich in the Next Generation episode Sins of the Father. We don't use money anymore. Riker tells Mariner, why don't you buy me a drink? Mariner replies, we don't use money anymore. This references the fact that most people in the Federation don't use money. Kirk says something very similar in The Voyage Home when Dr. Taylor says, don't tell me that you don't use money in the 23rd century, to which Kirk replies, well, we don't. The planet the Titan is headed for at the very end of this episode is Tolgana 4. This is the same planet Boimler and Mariner visited in the Lower Decks episode Envoys. Boimler has a picture of Jack Ransom in his new quarters. It really looks like Boimler has a round photo of Ransom in a place of honor in his new quarters. This is hilarious and weird. Does Boimler think Ransom was his friend? Mariner is so angry that Boimler left the ship without telling her that she says, I'm going to feed you to an Armus. This references the oil slick alien Armus from the Next Generation episode Skin of Evil. Again, this is the creature who killed Tasha Yar.
Oh, okay. Poor Tasha.
Riker says he is late to the bridge because I was watching the first Enterprise on the holodeck. You know, Archer and those guys.
Nice.
This references the infamous finale of Enterprise called These Are the Voyages, which is framed as Riker interacting in a holodeck simulation that recreates the final mission of the NX-01 Enterprise, which took place during the episode The Pegasus, which I talked about a minute ago. Riker and Troy talk about visiting Little Risa on Tolgana 4, which prompts Troy to ask if we should bring the little Horgan. This references a statue called the Horgan, which you're supposed to display openly on Risa if you want to, well, get busy. In the Next Generation episode Captain's Holiday, Riker tricked Picard into picking up a statue. Riker's warp speed catchphrase is "Give me warp" in the factor of 5, 6, 7, 8. He snaps and counts down to this like he's getting ready to play jazz. To which Troy says, "Oh, the jazz."
Yes. I love that.
Which seems to reference her annoyance with this obsession. In Second Chances, Troy marks Riker for being unable to play a certain trombone solo correctly called on a song called Nightbird. Riker's interest in playing jazz, specifically the trombone, started with the episode 11001001. Most recently, Riker was listening to jazz in the Picard episode Nepenthe, which Picard showed up at his house. And now that Lower Decks has put Boimler on the Titan, it seems very likely we'll be hearing more of Riker's jazz trombone playing in Season 2. What, pray tell, do you think of the season finale of Star Trek Lower Decks?
Wow. Just wow. Okay, the first of we get because in the teaser trailer for this episode and the last episode, we have Boimler telling Mariner, be like, "Oh, I know your secret." Be like, "Your mom is, the captain."
Yeah.
We had no
idea.
idea.
It gave you the idea that's all the episode was going to be about.
Yeah. And having no idea he had an open comm on his shirt.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my word, Boimler, you're dead."
Yeah. You ought to be dead.
Yeah, it's what I kept thinking. Is like, wait, why is he not in a medical bay somewhere?
She should have beat him up.
Yeah, exactly. That makes no sense though. But either way, it's the fact to be like the literal cat is out of the bag, and everybody's now sucking up to Mariner.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I absolutely love it to be like the fact to be like Mariner has been like I've been doing this all low key the entire time. No one knows who I am. I'm a nobody like you, Boimler.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I'm a somebody. People know me. It's like, wait, no one knows me. And we get that whole enchilada of greatness there. And then you get the what is the race we come in contact with? Salvagers.
The Pack-Led.
Yeah, the Pack-Led.
We are Pack-Led. We are honest traders.
Yeah.
We are going to destroy you, Enterprise. We're not the Enterprise. Oh no, there's a second Enterprise.
The fact that like we get a destruction of
another California class vessel.
Exactly. We get that, and it's just like, whoa, okay, that was interesting. I was like, okay, they actually destroyed a ship.
Yeah.
And then we get the Cerritos comes in for what was it?
They come in to answer the distress call.
Yeah.
Because they're convinced, or Freeman is convinced, that the reason they got the distress call was because, somebody broke a button on her new ship. We better go check it out. Ha, 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 ha.
Yeah, it's like, all you see is space debris.
Yes.
And
referencing, I personally think, the destruction of Alderaan in Star Wars A New Hope. They come out of warp. Where'd this asteroid field come from?
Or Star Trek 2009?
That too. Oh, let's face it, that was also a reference to
that was
A New Hope, because
was
JJ was a big Star Wars fan before he ever even thought about doing Star Trek.
Right. But be like the scene where the Cerritos gets captured, be like it gets part of its what is that part of the ship?
They rip off one of the warp nacelles.
Warp nacelles, thank you. And it's like, oh my gosh, they start literally tearing the ship apart.
Yeah. Like
everybody has to, evacuate. You have what's his name? The guy with the implant.
Rutherford.
We get Rutherford is like he's having to deal with the new settings.
Yeah.
And he's changing his mood.
He was touching a thing on his head, and it was causing his personality to change. Which, that is a really funky implant that allows that to happen. Mm-hmm. Which would explain why, unfortunately, at the end of the episode, he's lost all his memory.
Exactly.
If it was that implanted into his brain, then yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm curious how much of an upgrade he's getting next season on that.
Yeah, I wonder. Huh. And you have Tindy with the
exocomp.
The exocomp. That was hilarious.
See, I thought when they were showing the exocomp on there, I thought, oh, that's an interesting idea. That'll be an interesting little sub story.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not that interesting because we get essentially the exocomp peanut hamper being a klutz because she can't do things normal humans can do. We get another scene where she's because of how the robot is, she's actually probably the best medical thing the ship could have.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, this thing that we could easily send over that would be perfectly safe. We should send her over. No, I don't think I will. Well, screw you then.
It's like, come on.
You know what? I no longer like you. Oh, I think I'm going to beam myself out of this situation. Bye, guys. And she literally beams herself off the ship, and I'm going, what was the point of your character? I'm serious. The concept of Peanut Hamper is a great concept. Criminally destroyed.
Yeah.
They did not use that, I think, correctly at all, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's just how, they could have done so much more with that concept.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't think Peanut Hamper is ever coming back.
Oh, you never know.
I mean, you really never know. I was not expecting another person that came back that I was assumed wouldn't, because we get a return of Badgie.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Speaking of that scene, oh my word. The fact that Rutherford, they're like, okay, I need to create a virus to be like, oh, I can use Badgie. And Badgie is like...
No. You forgot what this is. We need to use someone who's incredibly smart, but has absolutely no conscience for the betterment of his fellow people. I don't remember the exact thing.
Something like that.
And then you see Rutherford go into the holodeck. It's like, oh no, Badgie is back. He's like, well, you'll need to disable all my safety protocols. But if I do that, she'll kill me, right? No, I won't do that. He says, okay, and he disables it. He says, well, I've already created 3 viruses for you. Here, have fun. It's like, okay. So they go to take it to Useless the Exocomp. Useless.
She basically is useless at that point.
She is very useless because says, oh, you can do it. It's like, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. She beams away. And Rutherford decides, well, I know, I'll upload it into my memory. I'm thinking, A, don't.
Yeah, don't
B,
do that, bro.
Don't. C, don't. D, you're going to pretend to be Data, aren't you? Crap. So he does that.
And then
then Jax picks him up and runs him through the ship to the shuttlecraft that Rutherford was working on.
Yeah.
You can tell because he painted it like it was one of those old jets from World War II that has the shark teeth and crap all over it. Because he was apparently in aggressive creative mode one day. He had hit the button during aggressive creative mode, and that's when he was working on that.
Right.
And then they get over there, and he goes and it starts going. And it's like, wait a minute, it's slowing to a crawl at 97%. Why is that? And then Badgie's hologram shows up and says, "It won't finish until you're dead." That's why are you doing this, Badgie? Because you killed me, Father. You snapped my neck. It's like, this fits the character.
Yeah, quite a bit.
And then we get, to me, a scene that kind of a sad scene.
It is. I agree.
Because Jax rips Rutherford's implant out of his head.
Yeah.
Throws him onto throws him onto the shuttlecraft, pushes the shuttlecraft out of the ship, in which we did see that the atmosphere had a force field, so good there. But before Jax can get off the ship, it blows up. He's with the emissary now.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that the emissary was a Starfleet officer.
Oh, but I mean, like, I enjoyed the fact to be like, you had...
He's yelling at the prophets now.
He's yelling at the prophets now. Oh man, just like that was a good character. That was a good character moment for him.
I mean, admittedly, he was they had not really come up with anything for his character the whole season.
Yeah.
So I maybe it was time to go ahead and kick him off and maybe get someone else who'll do a better job.
Yeah.
Plus, you get the Yar reference. But did you catch what he said as he pushed the shuttlecraft out?
Get going, the little bear.
Yes.
Something bear.
Referencing the very short time he was on the security team under Jax as part of the bear.
That's
the
right.
bear,
Little bear. That's right.
Yeah.
Now it'd be like you mentioned that. Yes.
Which is like, dude.
It was a very touching scene.
It was a very touching scene, even though they were having to go very, very fast. And then you get the arrival of the Titan.
It's like,
and it's not just the arrival of the Titan, which is cool. No, you get played in full the TNG movie version of the Next Generation theme song, played as if it's a hero's arrival.
And it is.
And it is. It's like, this is stinking awesome. I've never heard this theme song played like this, because it's before, it's not somber. I mean, while it is a very grand, it's very ceremonial grand. It's not. I never thought of this as Riker's theme, even though technically we got Troy also.
Yeah,
but it's like it fits so well. It's like, in the minute they said, "Oh, it's the Titan," they're going, "Oh, great, we got Riker here."
Because it took me a second, because I remember Titan is like, Riker's ship.
I need to watch it again, because I need to see if they've got Riker with his leg up on a console at some point. Because it was there, because that's what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, they had Ransom. They had Ransom doing it as a joke, so they've got to have Riker doing it.
Yeah.
And oh my word! And yes, we do have both Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis reprising their roles from Next Generation as Commander William T. Riker and Counselor Deanna Troi.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess it's now Deanna Riker, but they didn't actually say her last name, so we'll let it go.
Yeah, it's Deanna. But my word!
That was a moment of epicness.
Yes,
and
agreed.
They're tearing up these Pac-Led ships. Which the Pac-Led ships, I need to go ahead and say this. When they were first showing that Pac-Led ship, the one that was the small one that they had a little hologram of, that is a recreation of the Pac-Led ship that Next Generation crew ran into.
Okay.
Which I did recognize that, but the other ones they have, it's very much they just crammed all these different ships.
Oh yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
Well, when the other three come in after the first one's destroyed, as I was looking at it, I thought, wait a minute, those look like shoulders. Holy crap! Is this gonna be like a Megazord type robot thing that's gonna attack them? Are they gonna combine somehow? Thankfully, we didn't have that. But I remember looking at it going, "Those are shoulders. Where's the head?" And you look at the others. One of them looks like it could be two arms next to each other. The other looks like it could be two legs. So I'm just waiting for it to go full Megazord. What's the Transformer one that does that? Devastator. Yeah. I'm waiting for it to go that full thing.
Yeah.
I was like, please, that will be so fun. It would be so cool. And I could see Riker shoot its head off. But no, we don't get to see that.
No, we don't, but that would have been fun.
Best part, the ship they were coming there to save.
Yeah.
That thing, that little bit of the saucer could have been like its head piece that would have gone on top of the head, like how some of the Megazords kind of have a hat.
Yeah.
That's what that would have been. Because that would have been funny. Sad, but funny. Anyway. Oh, that was so stinking good.
Such a good episode, and plus we get the very ending where
Boimler
takes
the
promotion to the Titan.
Now, do you remember who else is on the Titan?
Remind me.
You remember the guy they got promoted to the Titan?
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was the most worthless person on the ship.
Yeah.
He's on Titan.
That's right.
Boimler's going to find him and kick his butt. Or he'll show up next season sometime.
He will.
So, yeah. And also, he had there next to the pad where where she was calling him all that time. Did you see that the Boimler effect plaque was sitting next to it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. It's like, okay, it's a great callback. It is something, as much as he hates the idea, that is something to be proud of. It was something you got. So yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this episode.
I think so.
But we need to talk about the season as a whole.
Okay.
Going into this season, I expected. Well, let's face it. The trailers when we were first starting off, I was worried.
Yeah.
I was worried that this was going to be some raunchy, just for the jokes thing. It was going to ruin all this other stuff because I was afraid it was going to be my perception of Rick and Morty, but in Star Trek. I'm not going to say it's not Rick and Morty in Star Trek because I've not actually watched Rick and Morty, but I will say it doesn't match my perception of that show. I think the show is done very well. It is an exaggeration of events, and I think some of what we see in the show does prove my theory that's been going on this whole time, is that this is not the actual adventures of this crew.
Okay.
Personally, I think
your own hand.
This is my headcanon. We are reading Mariner's logs.
Okay.
That have been turned into kind of a holodeck novel, much like the movie thing from last episode.
Okay.
These are not the actual events that occurred, but they're based on those events.
Okay.
And it is an exaggeration. Because there's a lot of stuff that happens in this show that I can't see on a normal episode of Star Trek. And yet there's a lot here I can see, but just exaggerated in the way that Mariner exaggerates what she talks about and everything. I have a feeling whenever we get to the series finale, that will be the big reveal, is that this has all been a story that she's written. That has been turned into a holo novel.
That can make sense.
To use the Star Trek terminology.
Yeah.
And that would make sense because she probably got together with Boimler and Tendi and Rutherford to get this together. And you'll note that Rutherford didn't have much this season.
Yeah.
But there's a good reason for that. He doesn't remember what happened this season.
No, he doesn't.
We're getting mostly what of Rutherford's side of things. We're mostly getting Tendi's views of it.
That's true.
Or we're getting some of Boimler's views of when he would run into it, or Mariner's. And plus, perhaps when they were writing this up, they went and checked back on logs the Cerritos have, because they would have access to it. All that's probably public knowledge by that point. Or just wrote that his character during that time as being, this is what he would have to do because this is how he is. Yeah. And obviously he can't remember any of the adventures he had because that was thrown out. But that would also explain why Jax didn't have much to do this season either. Because most of the times he was involved with anything involving the crew, it was through Rutherford. That makes interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that is interesting. It would be interesting to develop it actually happened.
I have no idea if this is planned.
Yeah.
But I also believe if it wasn't planned, you always take the shots you hit.
Yeah.
So if it works out this nice, you take it, you run with it, you claim it worked. I mean, it worked for George Lucas with Star Wars.
True. Very true.
But anyway, that's my thoughts on this season. What are yours?
My thoughts going into it, knowing a little bit about Rick and Morty and the creators behind it, I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to like this ever since I'm not a Trekkie at all. I've watched most of the movies, or I've watched all the movies. I've seen little bits here and there of the series, and it's like, okay, this is going to be more like a slapstick, really rude comedy. And I was pleasantly surprised, and hearing you just burst out laughing about every other minute about something
you've never even heard of.
I've never heard of, and be like, what was that?
But and then I get to explain the joke to you about 30 minutes later when we record the episode.
Yes. So I mean, like, watching season 1 was very educational when it comes to Trek lore and understanding more about the Star Trek universe. It was a pleasant experience. It was fun. It was nothing like I've ever seen Star Trek wise ever. And I'm very excited for season 2 when it comes out.
Now, I do have a question. You've not watched much of the series. All you've really watched is the movies, correct?
Yeah.
Does this interest you in any way in going back and looking at some of the old episodes?
Not
Not all of them, because that's a lot, but
yeah,
maybe a selection.
possibly.
Because here's the thing. Every time they make one of these series, the idea is, we're trying to get people into Star Trek who had never watched Star Trek before. So and that's some of what went into this. So my thought is always, with someone who knows very little about Star Trek, does this interest you into watching other Star Trek?
A little bit. It's more understanding where all these little nuggets and references come from. Be like, now I understand them because you are a vast knowledge of Star Trek.
I know more I've forgotten more about Star Trek than most people know about life.
That's saying something. But other than that, be like, it's a really, really well done show. Comedy wise, it's on the mark. Character development, it's on the mark. Definitely with the last episode of the first season, it's just, oh my word, that was incredible. That was just a breath of fresh air. It turned into a literal Star Trek movie, just a short television show.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I tremendously loved it, and I cannot wait for season 2.
So I have one question involving lore that this movie did not answer.
You mean TV show?
The show in general.
Okay.
For most of this season, the Federation people we see, the Starfleet personnel we see, are wearing the same Starfleet uniform that we see later on in Picard, which is like 10 years after this. Except the crew of the Titan.
Yeah.
Why is the crew of the Titan wearing last year's uniforms?
I don't know. Maybe it's just more...
The only other time we saw these uniforms was in the show.
Yeah.
Was the flashback to when Mariner was on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. And
the guy who had been on the weird
transport
to Chaos Town, or at least that's what he thought it was.
Yeah.
That had been on the thing for forever.
Yeah.
So it was implied that the reason he was wearing that uniform is because that's the uniform he was wearing when he got brought on board. Why then? It was the guy who was both half an old man, had both half advanced aging, half reverse aging.
Right.
He was wearing the last uniform, the Deep Space Nine TNG movie era uniform. Why is it now that we're obviously got new uniforms, at least on the Cerritos and other ships, why is the Titan a much more advanced ship and something... really a ship of the line similar to the Enterprise? Why are they still wearing the old uniform? Other than they are wearing the old uniform in all the non-canon book covers.
My only conclusion to that would be, it's like, okay, it's Riker. It's the last thing we ever saw Riker wearing, except in Picard.
Yeah, because he's wearing that in the episode when he's captaining a ship at the end of Picard. Spoiler alert. So,
nostalgia, I guess.
I guess it's just weird seeing Boimler move from the newer uniform to the old uniform.
Yeah.
At the very end of the episode, which at the same time it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like there's a lot of questions about how the Starfleet uniforms work that have never been explained. It could be that that's just hasn't made that ship just hadn't made the upgrade yet because of the stores. Then why wouldn't he keep you wearing the uniform he brought over from the Cerritos just with a new pin? I don't know. I'm just guessing. I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's just a weird thing that popped in my mind. Anyway.
Yeah.
That does bring us to the end of this episode.
Yes.
Do we want to talk about what is coming up next for the animated series?
I would. Yes.
Go ahead.
Let's go. What we are planning to do is it's a crossover with a very beloved series on the CW called...
which I never watched.
Yeah. Supernatural. And I believe it's in season 13. They do a very interesting crossover with Scooby-Doo. So we will be doing...
I am not surprised.
We will be doing Scooby-Natural from Supernatural season 13 or 14, one of those, and we'll be doing a review over that.
And what are we doing after that?
A little show from 2011 called Thundercats.
The anime version.
Yeah, the animated version.
Not the animated. They're all animated.
That's what you know.
I'm
What
talking
I
about
meant.
the one most people think of as the anime version.
Yeah, the anime. That's
Not
what I meant to say.
the original Saturday morning cartoon,
Which was done in anime.
which is also technically anime. But
Yes.
and we're also not talking about Thundercats. Blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thundercats meow.
Yeah. Pretty much. Either way.
Either way, yes. So join us for that, or as we continue going on. And also continue listening to our normal episodes of the Cellcast.
Mm-hmm.
We should be finishing up Halloween month as this episode ends, and getting ready for Studio Ghibli month part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So join us for that.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Come, Jacob. We must prepare for next week.
Prepare for what, Drew?
The same thing we do every week, Jacob. Record a podcast.
Oh, boy.
So where can they find you, Jacob?
They can find me on Facebook at Jacob B. Heron and Jacob's Daily Art Corner, my personal art Facebook page. On Twitter at Jacob B. Heron. On Instagram at Jacob B. Heron. And on Letterboxd at Jacob Heron. Where can they find you, Drew?
You can find me on Facebook at Drew Dodgen. You can also find my Facebook page at Drew's Photo Bin, where I upload my photography. You can also follow me on Letterboxd at GGeorge759 and Twitter at GGeorge759. Where can they find us, Jacob?
You can also visit our website, thecellcast.podbean.com, where you will find every episode we released and links to listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Stitcher. Our RSS feed, if we aren't in your favorite podcast app directory, please share, review, and subscribe to us there and share us with your friends.
You will also find a link to our Facebook group, the Double Feature Podcast Community, where we talk about both animated and live-action movies. We share this with our other podcasts, which we do with Jacob's brother Jim, at the Movie of the Week podcast, where we talk about live-action movies. You can also email us at thecellcastpodcast@gmail.com. Also, please like our page on Facebook. We try to post about upcoming movies. If you comment on that movie's post before we record, we'll read your comments in the episode. And remember, every time we say the Cellcast, that is with a single L.